Thank you very much, gentlemen. Of course, every carry needs a good support, and Jez's, it looked like it was a rough game too for you guys, but you still managed to get the 2-0. Your teammate Reckless talked on day one about having some nerves coming back on stage. How were you guys feeling in that last game?
I think last week was, I don't know if it was really nerves. I think it was just sort of getting used to playing on stage again, because it's completely different playing on stage rather than sitting at home and scrimming and stuff. So I think it was just more getting used to it rather than nerves. And I think the games today, especially second game, I don't know. I think we were just playing really poorly. We were not ourselves for some reason. I think they played really well too. They played super aggressive, which no other team really does. So we were sort of caught off guard there, but overall, I guess, we ended up winning, so yeah, whatever.
Yeah, the W is pretty important, but there's always things to work on going forward in the future. The way you guys have played this week so far, even with 4 wins on the board, how do you feel you stack up against what you've seen the rest of the competition in the EU LCS so far?
I think we're definitely top 3. I have no clue how good every team is yet. I think we're good for sure, but yeah, as I said, I don't know how good they are, but I think like last split, we're definitely top 3, and we're aiming to be the best team, of course.
Alrighty, well, looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out for you guys. Now, I want to switch things up a little bit and go a little deeper into some of the macro stuff. Camille's been hit with the nerf bat several times over the last few patches, maybe not recently, but you're still picking her for the support role. Do you want to tell me why that is?
I don't know. I think it just fits my playstyle. Obviously, I've scrimmed a few times before I pick it on stage, but I think the champion overall is still fine because the kit is so good, so it's still a good support. But it's so momentum-based, so if you mess up once, then you're going to fall off a bit, or mentally, I guess, you're going to fall off a bit. For example, in the first game there, we were going to go on Karma, and then I ult on Karma, and obviously the call is okay, we can stop Galio ult, and then Galio still ults, which is kind of unfortunate, and I just die, and I sort of lost my momentum in a way, and yeah, I think it's just sort of mental-based, but I think the champion's still fine.
All right, well, and it seems like it's not the only kind of playmaking champion we're seeing in the support role. There's a rise in Thresh, you played Braum in the next game, all this good stuff. With the way that the meta is shifting, it seems, at least here in Europe, towards these more playmaking and tanky supports, how do you feel that's going to change your performance going forward?
I think that's what I'm playing the most, especially recently to the different playstyle that we had at the end of the Spring Split. I think just the playmaking supports and, the tanky, frontliney supports that can make plays, they fit my style really well and the team style really well. So the fact that, the Doran shield came in and it's much easier to lane and stuff now, with these weaker supports, I think it benefits us a lot.
Well, that's good, and you guys might need all the help you can get because you're going up against G2 Esports, the team that knocked you out of semifinals in the spring. How do you feel going up against those guys? You looking for revenge?
Definitely looking for revenge, yeah. I felt like on a good day we could have beat them back then. And obviously they haven't had that much practice. They've been on vacation, so hopefully we can beat them next week, yeah.
Well, we'll see how it all shakes out. That's going to be on Thursday, of course. So I wish you guys the best of luck, and congratulations again on your 2-0.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, with that all said and done, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Send it over to Shocks and the boys for the post-game lobby.
Welcome, everybody, to the post-game lobby for a look back on our first week here in the EU LCS Summer Split and a new setup. I'm liking it. What do you guys are far away, but I think we can make it work.
I like it too, so yeah. I'm...
All right. Well, the love is all around, and we're going to start by taking a look at some of the week highlight plays and matchups and a few hard carries. And we're going to start with the Unicorns of Love because they began their fight for the trophy here in summer with a win over Vitality, and it was pretty ugly for Vitality. We don't, or we shouldn't beat around the bush, rather, but it was exceptionally good by the Unicorns of Love, who looked like they were just immediately in the right mindset.
They came back, of course, second place in Spring. They went away, prepared even more. The Unicorns, the most prepared they've been for a split, and their boot camp seemed to pay off because right out of the gates, spectacular team fighting. Everything the Unicorns showed us that looked good in Spring was still apparent, and I think this really looks like still the second best team. We haven't seen G2 yet.
Really, yeah, we haven't really seen G2 yet. I also want to see Unicorns against Fnatic at the moment. I think that could be very close. I'm still surprised Unicorns got Zac.
Yes,
And
That jungler-
I too am
Their jungler
surprised.
even played Zac before we buffed
Before he
and
was cool.
reworked him. It's like, if there's one team I would never give Zac in Europe, it would be Unicorns of Love. And yet, Yamato Cannon and Vitality, they kind of fell into a trap and they gave over to Zac, and that was an odd one.
Well, we also wanted to look at some players throughout the series in the first week that have impressed us. And Exile is someone that we have to call out because we also called him out. We said before the match of the Unicorns of Love versus Vitality, Exile couldn't really make it work in the finals versus Perk. So he is someone that still has room for improvement on the Unicorns of Love, and we were looking at.
I think as an individual, he's a player that, very similar to Perks, has shown a lot of growth in a very short amount of time. And I think that what we've seen at the very start of summer is he's already coming into the split looking like one of the best mid laners in Europe. And I think that's one of the most exciting things we have here in EU, because we do have the return of some of the top talent in the middle lane.
Didn't you also just say that about
I
Caps?
did, because I think there's a lot of best mid laners.
So I personally think Exile is just a step under where we have Febiven, Caps, and Perks. If I look at the mid laners right now, and that is, a lot of it is obviously based on last split and what we saw in playoffs when he did play against a lot of these guys, and not based on his current form, because we've only seen one series from him. But I just think the only problem for Exile is he plays so aggressive in almost every matchup, and I don't think he mechanically outskills these other guys, which means they can actually sometimes punish his aggressive moves, and that is why I can see him struggle a little bit. But I think actually he plays with his team extremely well, and that's where he gets his biggest bonus.
I think Febiven's a more consistent player, but Exile to me is a big standout. He puts up massive numbers, and that's for me why I actually rank him ever so slightly higher.
Well, we can also look at some moves from that other mid laner that you just mentioned, Caps, because Fnatic, well, they had a fantastic start, and Fnatic, they were hoping to climb back to the top of the EU LCS, and well, a 4-0 start, you can't really ask for a lot more. They beat NIP on the last day, and they also beat the Misfits maybe more convincingly than in their series versus
And this was a Fnatic that, again, another team that came in right looking from Spring Split, the same kind of thing, off a boot camp again. Another team that just strategically had prepared for this split. Still some of the Fnatic style with the Twitch, the Tristana in 2 games in the first series, but you can't doubt how impressive they looked against Misfits.
No, I'm really impressed with the development the Fnatic made, the fact that they are so keen and hungry, and that they ended their split on a high, and they're continuing that high. I feel like that right now, they're yet to be properly challenged. I think that the reason why this game was so back and forth was because they made a lot of mistakes, which NIP were pretty good at trying to find winners to punish, and I'm looking forward to seeing how well they can do against the other top 3 teams that are currently sitting at the top of the stand.
38 KDA. KDA means everything. He is the best in Europe. Boom.
There we go.
There we go.
Perks didn't even play yet.
No.
No. Caps, I think Caps
Just
actually.
kidding, obviously.
Caps is a guy obviously last split that we hyped a lot. We were like, this guy has the potential to be like the rookie of the split. A lot of the mid laners in Europe are talking very highly about him from Scrims and from solo queue. I think he showed some good plays in Spring Split, but he also had a lot of bad performances. Like he was very inconsistent together with the rest of Fnatic for the first half. But once they actually really started playing well coming into playoffs, Caps joined the team, and he also showed up big time.
He did.
I think he's continuing that trend right now. And again, that's why the mid lane pool in Europe, especially the top half, is very, very exciting. If you look at the top teams, there is not a weak mid laner up there.
Yeah, maybe very brief before we move on. Misfits Gaming is a team that we expected a bit more from maybe in their first showing versus Fnatic, underperforming.
Underperforming, but I think at the same time, we expect from the split as a whole, the same out of Misfits around about that top 4, maybe challenging the 3rd place decider, but I don't think any team that changes a jungler with such drastic style difference to somebody who is going to have a shot calling impact is right out of the gates going to show that improvement. If it's still the same by week 5, week 6, that's when we got to worry about Misfits, in my opinion.
But I think that while a lot of focus has been on the jungle, we've also seen a lot of individual underperformances like Alfari, not quite stepping up, dying a lot of the times to very old mistakes that he used to make before he even joined the LCS. Down in the bottom lane too, a lot of matchups that those two should have been winning and really not. And like I just feel that they need to get back to the caliber that they were at before they can even start integrating Max Law into what made them a good team last split.
Yeah, and that's a story for a lot of teams that we've seen. Also Splice, they started off the summer playing versus H2K, and they couldn't really do that much in that matchup either, because on the other side, they found themselves against a very strong and collected H2K, who, by the way, also went 4-0 on the week.
Yeah, we had some positive first few minutes of the first game for Splice, and then that was about it, because H2K like out-macroed them completely in the mid to late game, and then the second game was like the Akali Lucian game from Splice, where they fell behind early, as you could see on your screen, and it snowballed out of control. Like 23-minute game, I believe it was, in favor of H2K. Complete stomp.
Odo Omne's mad that not enough people talked about how hard Odo Omne carried. So Odo Omne,
right.
Yeah.
this is us.
I mean, we showed him
out
die. We didn't
Fiora.
show him get like 8 kills on Fiora, to be fair.
But that's enough about Odo Omne. Shay,
I agree.
he great performance starting off the summer split.
That
I mean,
intimate
Shay,
moment. By the way.
bringing out the Thresh, looking superb in the bottom lane. This is what we wanted to see out of Che. When we saw that name go into the H2K lineup, we wanted to see playmaking a little bit more. Hopefully it'll be a fun summer with Nuclear Che bot lane for H2K.
Yeah, and Janko's also, as always.
Pretty decent.
Unless
Yeah.
he dies early, like to at a wolf camp, or he never should, he does pretty good.
But also, like, one of the standout players that I wanted to highlight on Splice was actually their mid laner Senkux, because when looking at his early game
One of the
performance,
best in Europe.
one of the best in Europe. He, I felt like that in his initial game, like, he seemed to be playing a lot more confidently, and I felt like that, especially on his Orianna, he seemed to be a lot more proactive than what we've seen from him in the past. And
Martin doesn't agree.
I mean, it's fine if he doesn't agree, but like, one of the biggest issues we as a broadcast team have always had with Senkux was that he never really did anything. Like, very early on when he first arrived, like, there was a lot of hype surrounding him, like his LeBlanc play that still
Hey,
sticks in
got
the
that
mind, right?
particle.
But since then, he's been like kind of teetering just as average. He's been like a very average mid laner. And I, like, based on what I've seen from him so far, I have hopes for him. I'm looking at him and I feel like he could be a player that has more of an impact throughout the split.
Martin?
I think, judging from the first series we saw, like his Orianna performance outside of laning phase was decent, but I think in laning phase he should have done way more in the matchup. And I think the Lucian game he had right after showed some of the problems for him and Splice, like some mis-synergy between the lanes and the jungler. Like Trashy died in the jungle, then suddenly Senkux is going aggressive on Lucian, he dies, he falls behind, and I kind of agree. I think Senkux has been like just an average mid laner in the EU LCS, which is not really a bad thing.
It's not,
like,
of course
you're still
not.
an average mid
Best
laner.
region in the world after Korea, obviously.
After Korea, like, important thing to add. So I think he's the kind of guy I still want to see more from, but I'm not sure we will see that much more. I think Spice has kind of realized it is Wonder that we are playing around more than anything.
Yeah, I wonder that they're playing around. And also the big question, could it be that what we've even hinted at in spring, has the ceiling been reached or not? We don't know, but it was only one series, so we'll have to see what they can improve on. And we're going to take a look at the standings after 1 week of competition here in the EU LCS, where, well, the top teams, H2K, the Unicorns of Love, Fnatic, and G2 Esports. Not the biggest surprise. As said, Misfits not showing up is kind of the biggest trump card over
Well,
there.
the one surprise that was there that we didn't talk about, G2 Esports with 3 substitutes get the series win. It was perhaps the most treacherous series for them the entire split. We're looking forward next week to seeing them come back at full strength. That we hope, hopefully Perks is back and well, but still, good series overall from the substitute G2 lineup taking down
and sad
Rockout.
for Rockout. That's just the worst
Yeah.
thing about it, isn't it?
I mean, you can only blame yourself.
Right.
That's kind of the thing. When you
I will.
lose, blame yourself. It's your fault, Sharks. When Rocket loses to 3 subs, we can only blame the host.
Okay, well,
we go.
we will see how the groups develop next week as the summer split continues. And we're going to be starting off with Misfits versus Ninjas in Pajamas and G2 versus Fnatic. Martin thinks that Fnatic, should I say, I don't know exactly what you said. You said, is it going to beat or can beat or?
Oh, I think they can definitely beat G2 in this series.
Even after today's performance, you think so?
I mean, I think with G2 coming back with the full roster, barely having scrimmed, like, I can see Fnatic take this series.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're favorites, but I think they can definitely take the series.
And I'm really excited to seeing matchups like the NIP versus Misfits, based on what we've seen today from NIP, and as well based on the underperformance that we've seen from Misfits. How many of the issues can Misfits shore up coming into next week's matchup?
Then atop a Group B clash to round out week 2. Unicorns, H2K, another hype matchup. There's so many good matchups next week.
Yeah, you know why there's so many good matches? Because it's 4 days of action. And no rest for
What
the
do we call that week?
We
That
called
is
it at a really
mega
exciting
cool,
week.
awesome
Okay.
week. Yay! Faded. All right, cool. And we'll be starting at 5 p.m. also on Thursday. Well, we will also be checking out the changes on patch 7.10, your top plays of the week, and much more. So if you are joining us in client, be sure to hit up youtube.com/LOL Esports for the full-length edition of the post-game lobby. All right, but that means we have a lot more time to talk about the teams and talk about the groups in general. And maybe I want to start with the last series we saw on Saturday, NIP versus Fnatic, because out of all the kind of changed lineups, new teams, this and that, I feel like NIP has shown us the most promise. Do you guys agree? Stress.
Yes, out of the new teams, I do. I even think we were talking about this a lot during the NIP series, that Vitality didn't look as good as NIP. Misfits Gaming didn't look as good as NIP
what looked
either.
good about NIP?
I think the fact that they showed they can play around Profit, and Profit can at least provide a lot of pressure out in the side lane. He played Javan, got 100 CS up over SOAS, and consistently was pushing. Problem is the team weren't necessarily good at reacting at how that pressure was actually creating opportunity. So I think NIP still are struggling, but they do have avenues that they're prepared to play.
Nagne was pretty good as well.
Yeah, see, like one of the best in Europe. We have.
So who's left out? Who sucks, Betty? Let's just tell us that.
The mid laner for Roccat Betsy.
Wow!
I baited you. I didn't know that you're actually going to go in.
The easy one would have been Perks. He didn't even play. Like that.
Well, we can get onto that discussion a little bit later. We can definitely jump in on that a little bit later. However, focusing back on NIP, like, I think that NIP didn't play very well around Profit. I think that he, on an individual level, stood up, and I think that he had a good performance when he was playing champions like Javan, but we saw him dying 1v1 up against SOAS. We did see him overextending here or there too, and I feel like that as a team, they did not actually invest a huge amount of resources in order to make sure that he succeeded. So I think that on an individual level, there are a lot of strengths in the form of Nagne and Profit, but also the bottom lane, I feel, has surprised a few in the way in which they held their own and the way in which they played a lot of their team fights.
I think there was a significant difference between Game 1 and Game 2, though, because when Profit got that kill in Game 2, he legitimately took over that game, whoever was in the side lane against him. So I think that's what I'm looking for out of NIP against weaker opponents that actually can get them wins. I think you're right that Game 1, Profit looked very shaky on his own, but when they started playing around him, there was that adaptation that made NIP look a little bit better.
But I think just the fact that we can actually have a discussion about what was good and what was bad for NIP is why they showed us a bit more than some of the other teams that have been losing this week. It's not really about NIP necessarily being a stronger team than Roccat or Misfits Gaming or Splice. It's only one series. It's more the fact we actually saw something where we were like, ooh, that's a positive.
Yep.
You know, there was something here. Nagne's second game as an example. His first game, on the other hand, wasn't good, and there was some clear miscommunication. But I like the fact that there is something we can actually look at and say, if they can continue with like Profit's individual play or Nagne or on Talia, hey, there's something we can actually look forward to.
You spoke about Nagne. Some of the games where there's pings clearly on a jungle coming towards mid lane and he just sits there, pushes another wave. That happened multiple times that hopefully NIP can work on and rectify with Nagne, because that's the kind of issue that's going to get punished again and again.
Yeah, and now we talked about, you know, a few positives for NIP, and as I said before here, we didn't really find anything on some of the other teams, and that's a concern, I feel like. Or
small things, right? Like a good early game for 10 minutes by Splice, a good early game for 10 minutes by Vitality.
Right.
Mysterious Monkeys, actually, and that was what was the most obvious, I think, over the first week, is that the beginning was maybe in the first game always kind of good for these teams that we were looking at to improve the split, or for the new teams coming on. But the difference with the top teams, it just seems very, very big once the mid game comes around.
You have to show more than just 10 minutes. You have again prepared the entire off season for this very first week, and there needs to be a clear strength for your team going into this week. Now, they might be the wrong strength, like, oh, we can only play late game, so we just lose in 20 minutes, and that would obviously suck. But at least then you have something you can then say, okay, we have the late game down, let's try and work on the early game. For the teams we have seen going down 0-2 this week, a lot of them actually felt like, laning phase kind of iffy, picking man phase not too great. Ooh, your team play is actually pretty off as well. That's a lot of things that you got to work on, but obviously that was against some of the top 4 teams.
It was,
and there is a gap. Next week we're going to see more of the Misfits Gaming versus like a Roccat, and that might be much closer.
And maybe we should also then be happy that our top teams, or the HUK, Unicorns of Love, G2, even with subs, and Fnatic, that they've come to the first week and they were so prepared that they were able to get, you know, to get all those wins on the board, because you don't really want in summer either your top teams to look like, you know, they can't get the job done and not be prepared.
We're looking at contenders for Worlds after this split, you know, right? Everyone is pretty confident that G2 is likely to be at the top, very likely to make it to Worlds, but then it's very much a debate about the next 3 teams that follow, because we do have such a close fight initially from what we've seen between these top 4 teams. And what we obviously want to see here in Europe is that the bottom teams level themselves up to better challenge the top teams. Because one of the big debates was, you know, like, why are we sending G2 to international events? Why is it always G2? And a lot of the blame went on G2, but then the actual blame started to move towards like Fnatic and HDK, and you were, well, like, you guys should have been better to knock them off that pedestal, right? Like, you guys need to level up your game. And it feels like to me they took the message and they've come into this split ready.
Yeah, and I do want to give you a chance, Vedius, if you want to say anything else about all the mid lane talent and how everyone's been doing, because I do feel like I've thrown you under the bus a little bit and you took
kind
the
of threw
bait.
yourself under that bus.
Yeah, okay.
No, but I do honestly feel that based on what we've seen, like, Betsy is underperforming and Nukeduck is yet to step up too. Like, for me, these are 2 mid laners that, given the immense talent that we do have here in Europe, like, I expected a little bit more from, because towards the end of the regular season of Spring, Betsy seemed to find his pool and he seemed to find champions that he was really able to succeed on. And from Nukeduck, like, he has been less than an average mid laner who really doesn't do anything in terms of impact his team. So I look at these 2 mid laners and I wanted to maybe see more from them coming into the new split. And so far, again, it's only been 1 game. Maybe I am being super harsh on these 2 guys.
3 games for Rocket.
I do feel like that they do, like, I want to be seeing a lot more from these, especially when you have so much other mid lane talent that you can go up against.
I'm a little surprised not to see Rocket trying to flex Galio towards mid lane. Maybe we'll see that in weeks gone by. I think that fits
Feels like a
Betsy's
Betsy
style a
pick,
little bit better, like the Swains that we've seen before, where he can stand around and not die and make a lot of noise.
You
and
guys
his AD
are
carry
being
kind of cleans up.
really,
No, but that's why he genuinely is like a successful team fighting mid laner when he's got a tanky mid lane.
We say team fighter, but I actually think like a lot of the picks where he showed success was where he could be like a split pusher as well. And like Galio mid lane is not necessarily built to go into a side lane and split push. Like the Swain was really good for him because you could go into a side lane, you could 1v1 basically anything, and you can just like push out your lane, and then you can of course join into a team fight. And that was the style Rocket found success with at the end of Spring Split. They're obviously going to try and do the same, but they put him on Syndra a few of the games, and one of them worked out okay, and the other one kind of backfired for them against G2. And then the Lucian game where he loses both summoners and kind of gives away both summoners actually early on. And everything just kind of falls apart for Rocket. But there's definitely a lot of mid laners to look at. And after week 1, like I want to sit here again in week 2 and then look back at these guys and say, okay, what happened now in the second week where they played more games?
Yeah, we will track that. And we also want to track 7.10, as that was our first week in EU, at least on the patch. We talked a lot about mid, where there weren't the craziest changes, but top lane has shown us a lot of diversity. In the bottom lane, we only saw Xayah and Rakan together only once, but we saw a lot of Doran Shield. What is kind of the biggest takeaway for you guys, maybe Vedi, of 7.10 in EU so far?
Doran Shield is really good.
Nice.
Gargoyle Stoneplate is really good. Like, largely on bruises, in particular, we saw the impact that Jarvan can have on it, because you go, like, Black Cleaver into, like, a damage item. We haven't seen any Death's Dance yet, which I think that as a few weeks go by, maybe it'll be picked up a little bit more. But then you third item Gargoyle Stoneplate, and you just turn from a like one-shot tanky top bruiser into a pretty much a tank, because you get so much defensive stats and so much bonus HP that is a really effective item that I think we'll see utilized even more and more as weeks go by.
We've seen some fun builds out of top lane, a couple of different Galio builds. The generic one that we've seen, where you get like the Abyssal, you mix it in with some other tank
Righteous
items.
Glory.
Stoneplate. Then we've had Chachi with Medjay Soulstealer Iceborne Gauntlet Galio, where he's just trying to kill everything. And then Jisoo trying to get the
Righteous Glory. That was weird.
Quickly. That was weird because I'm like, you have an ult that covers half the map. If you're in Righteous Glory range, I'm not really sure what's going on there. But Galio is an unkillable champion. This champion is disgusting when ahead. Not so great when behind, but you know when a Galio has like 4 items, that's going to be really difficult.
Needs a team around him as well, which is, we've seen some performances that were good or some bad. Rift Herald, for me, is kind of thing to always track in LCK, you know, Demacia Cup in China, NA LCS and EU LCS as well. Like, so many different uses of Rift Herald. Some of them have just been like so bad, honestly, and some of them have actually worked extremely well. I think most of the time, Rift Herald has just not been that impactful. And like, teams will get it, and then they will maybe get a tower, or they will get like 80% HP on that tower, and then that was kind of Rift Herald done for the game, and it didn't really change a whole lot. And this might, or it probably is, because it's not that strong. Like, it's not overpowered by any means, but it's also because some teams are just not playing around it very well. Like, they pick it up, support face checked and dies. They can't actually place it for another 2 minutes, and then they kind of run around and be like, oh, let's put a top lane for nothing, and then they don't get anything.
And I think Unicorn showed us you can play around it as well by pushing out mid lane really hard and then actually fighting the enemy team when they've got it. So there are certainly ways around it once the enemy team pick it up.
Definitely. Well, if anything, we've seen a lot of action here in week 1, and we're going to check out the top plays of the week, brought to you by Acer, starting out by a tweet from @ScenarioLol. He was blown away by Rockat's Rakan Galio wombo combo in their opener versus G2. Let's take a look.
Though that's going to be the combo. Galio now coming into the backside. Oh, that's a wombo! Equalizer comes out, but it's not even going to do a thing because Foxy just going to back off. Decent damage comes in for Sven, but that's the coordination we were waiting for from Roccat.
It's like they gotta
To me, that seems like such an unconventional wombo combo too, because when I remember wombo combo, it's like a Moo Misfortune, like that kind of a wombo combo. But seeing these new creative ways
It's
to just kill
2017,
everyone,
Betty.
I think it's really
starting
cool.
2012.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
Disgusting.
That it is. Next one from @BestWeeaboo writes, Quadra kill for Lulex. Who saw that coming? Superior pathing must be the answer.
There we go.
Auto up, waiting for the passive to get ready, gonna walk forward. Lulex gonna grab that one though. Kills keep coming, Foxy running for his life. Sven into the pinch, but no, it's Sven on the backside. So much damage, Lulex getting the double. Bounce, 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 looking to get a little more. That's the triple for Lulex. He wants to make it a quadra. Let's keep it up, folks. Let's follow him down. That's 4 kills for Lulex.
Yeah, we got to just highlight the fact that, well, Blanc and Lulex, as an example, also Sendo, but they just shoved in and they had a fantastic series. And obviously, Lulex operates in the interview afterwards as well that I saw today, saying, "Well, hey, I deserve a chance. Look at this." And I have to say, I underestimated him a bit, and he played a fantastic series.
Got his revenge on Pride Stalker for
Definitely did.
Yes, he
the
did.
promotion tournament playoff in CS games where Lulex didn't look quite so hard in that.
It's just a hard thing. There's only room for so many players in the
Yeah.
EU LCS, and the European team's not really using subs a whole lot. So that it's hard to fit in everyone because there's a lot of guys in Challenger who actually would be good enough to play LCS. I wish the EU teams would start having a few more guys on the rosters and they could maybe sub in a guy like Lulex in certain games.
Yeah, great point. And in this, well, they needed someone, right?
Sure.
So
Maybe that's more.
perfect. See. All right. Last tweet is from @WeebyBison. Tweeted, "Hey, rookie EU LCS viewers, this is Reckless. He kills people with weird things."
Flash forward, play in. Hansama's in trouble. Exhaust goes down. Where's the backup? CC ticking down on that side. Charge goes in. Leap forward from Reckless. Has to be careful, but there's the Shen ultimate. Perfect timing on the first blood. Max Floor's in no man's land. He's going to drop. Power Beagle flashing forward. He wants to get something back out. Fari is here as well. Taunt connects onto 2. Power still alive, but there is no mana in that bag. Bam! Ignar going to drop as well. Triple for Reckless, and that is a nice start for Fnatic.
You could not ask for anything more. Ask anything more from Reckless.
Ask for anything
Ask
more.
for anything more from Reckless.
I think we should just
I feel
not
like
say anything for the rest of the segment.
No, I think it's a beautiful accent. I was gonna say Reckless obviously not with the team in Korea to train, but they didn't miss a beat either. All the rest practiced there. They came back together here in Europe. They had their first series Fnatic, and they look like a big contender for the split.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known it that Reckless wasn't practicing with them. Everything looked very crisp. We even got to hear from Reckless. It's been a long time since we did, and it seems like Fnatic are in a good spot for this split with their performances as well. 4-0 on the week. Looking pretty strong.
Yep, we will see how everything evolves when we are back next week for more big plays next Thursday as the EU LCS continues with Misfits Gaming versus the Ninjas in Pajamas, G2 versus Fnatic, Unicorns versus Monkeys, Bunnies versus, what is the Roccat?
Like a cat. Is it a
cat,
tiger or is it
tiger.
actually just a cat?
Cheetah?
Isn't it a panther?
Leopard?
A panda? Did you know?
No, Panther.
Oh, panther.
Oh, yeah.
That makes way.
We need a
I was like, hang on.
Reddit Roccat guy to tell us.
Oh,
a
it's not
mouse
the
is definitely
samurai
not a
versus-
mouse.
I know, it's a cat.
Right?
It's just a cat. It's a big cat.
Snakes versus monkeys. Everything's going on here.
Wow, that was some good insight about next week's schedule,
The
guys.
zoo in the in European League of Legends.
It's kind of cool. It gives a lot of flavor. Well, anyway, we will see how all these zoo animals can do next week. We're talking about this, of course. Thank you very much for watching, and we hope to see you again as the EU LCS Summer Split continues next week. Have a fantastic night.
Good job.
We are finally on Summoner's Rift for the start of this best of 3.
Oh, I didn't expect him. I didn't expect him. I was like, ha, ha, ha.
And this is about as easy as it can get. He's stunned up on the cocoon. Justice punches his way in for the first blood onto Otowane. Jisoo goes down, but hashtag word. Damage coming in. Who's going to be first blood? Shook's still alive. He's running for his life, but that's Fnatic. Part 2. Out of the brushes comes death, and here we go. Justice punch in, sink the fangs. Jankos claims another.
That's a welcome to the ULCS. And this guy's come from lane. Go ahead. Nice.
I'm coming.
He can get vision, but it's not going to be too much more than that. The Baron has already gone.
What? Okay.
Llama Bear, he thought he was getting a kill, but instead the hunter becomes the hunted.
And Reckless is just waiting for the perfect positioning in the backline. There's the spray and pray. Oh, that's so much damage. You can't let a Twitch do that to your team. He's destroying everyone. That's the triple kill going in.
It might be too little. It might be too late. He gets a two-man taunt, but it doesn't matter. Cleansed on out. Yuki picking up Febiven on the back half of it all, but it's not going to mean a damn thing.
I'm the only one dying this game, by the way.
But not going to mean a whole lot. Keep your eyes on Shook. The Baron is going lower. It's going Steal comes in from Nogday. That is disaster for Fnatic.
Q is getting chunked out by Jankos, but Yuki comes in to pick up Febiven, and Cosq lives again. The man is a magician.
Here is solo. Fuck my life, man. I lost vision.
You want NIP? Ooh, you want to get a kill.
Kick back. Looking for the Lee Sin combos. He Blacklist flash over the wall. He's going to get taken down. Shook. That's some solo Q roots right there. Flashy plays coming in from the Lee Sin. Is in trouble. Now back up there's Prophet. Where can he go? Trigger Seed goes in. Oh, Caps on the backside. You forgot it's not just about Reckless.
Legendary kill for Nuclear, and that's all she wrote. GG, well played.
Kill this guy. Who's tanking? Ah, fuck it.
Oh my god.
Sorry, I trolled a bit this game.